Hey friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're test driving the 2015 Kia Forte 5. This is the sportier of the Forte line, that being the sedan and the coupe. Now Kia would tell us this is the car we ought to be comparing to the Volkswagen GTI, the Ford Focus ST, and perhaps the Mazda 3. And of course the big question in everyone's minds is, does it really compare? Well, the premise of our test is to see how the Forte5 SX compares to the VW GTI, Ford Focus ST, and others. It has to be pointed out that it starts out at a much lower price point of $21,715. This is some $2,000 less than the Ford Focus ST and $3,000 less than the Volkswagen GTI. Our tester, however, is fully loaded with both the tech and premium packages, a few options, and an automatic transmission, which brings it to $27,000 and some change. All of this gives the exterior of the Forte 5 HID headlights and a sunroof. The SX trim grade, of course, brings larger 18-inch wheels, fog lights, dual exhaust tips, and LED combination rear tail lamps. Trim-like door handles and mirrors also get a unique black pearl color. An interesting element here is the carbon fiber patterned black plastic trim found on the front and rear fascias. This theme continues to the interior with the same trims found on the dash and center stack. With the packages on our tester, it has both heating and ventilation for the driver's seat, but only heating on the passenger seat. It was a strange omission, I think, but the rear seats do have heat, which is conversely an uncommon addition. The good news is that the seating up front is very supportive and comfortable, with adjustments easily made. Rear seat passengers will find the space compact, but that is the class we're in. Controls are well laid out for the most part, though I find the overall interior design to be not quite as well defined as the exterior. It just has a lot of uninspired shapes and forms that don't really seem to gel together as well as some of the competitors' cabins. The optioned Uvo Infotainment system offered up adequate sound quality, but not as good as you would hope for in the top-end system. While the menus and the on-road operations of the touchscreen are generally good, the interface has one flaw that, in my opinion, almost washes all the good away. Every single time you get in the car and start it, the system forces you to press a button agreeing to a legal disclaimer before it'll provide you any menus, navigation, or radio display screens. And unlike other brands, it won't just go away after a period of time. Instead, it'll stay there and deny you access to your infotainment screen menus until you relent. It's frankly annoying to the point that after a while I just ignored it and let the screen stay up, using the steering wheel mounted controls to change radio stations and adjust the volume. On the road, the Kia Forte 5 offers up a sportier handling feel than the base models, with a performance suspension and sharper athletics from its 18-inch wheels and lower profile tires. It has McPherson struts up front, but unlike the competitors, has a twist beam rear axle instead of a modern multi-link independent suspension. One feature this car has, which is actually kind of a neat deal on the surface, is its power steering adjustment here. There's a button which you can change it from normal to sport to comfort, and basically what it does is it changes the amount of effort that you have to apply to the steering, and it gives the steering a different feel so that you can really sort of tailor it towards the kinds of driving you're doing or just your general preference. And so that's always kind of a neat thing in any car. But the problem this car has is they've also sort of tried to create this stiff on center feel with the power steering, and it actually has a stickiness to it. So whenever you go off center, it feels like it's sticking, and then you have to brake past it. And so when you're going straight, it's just always something that you feel like you've got to correct for, because it wants to stick in a certain spot and doesn't really allow you to do really minute corrections without breaking past this stick point. And so when you're going straight like this right here, corrections are something that you constantly have to do, just like any car, but you feel them more here because you're breaking past that stick point. And no adjusting here seems to change that at all. It's just very bizarre. Under the hood is a direct injected turbocharged 1.6-liter four-cylinder engine which cranks out 201 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. It's available with both a 6-speed manual transmission or a 6-speed automatic, which our tester has. Now, power from this 1.6-liter engine, not too bad, and as you saw, torque steer really isn't that bad at all either. Now, I say that in its own context. And what I mean by that? Well, the GTI and the Ford Focus ST both have quite a bit more horsepower than this. The GTI about 25 more, and the Ford Focus, well, 40 or more better. So we're not quite as powerful as those, but this engine does have a pleasant power curve, puts a bit of a kick in your back, and doesn't have a terrible sound. This transmission actually does a pretty good job of doing the shifts, both up and down. And of course, you've got these paddle shifters here if you want to do it manually, though they do feel a little bit cheap and plasticky. While fuel economy isn't always the top concern for performance buyers, the EPA rates the Kia Forte5 SX at 21 mpg city, 29 mpg highway, and 24 mpg combined. In our testing, we observed 28 mpg combined, which is a good deal more than promised. As to safety, according to the IIHS, the 2015 Kia Forte sedan achieves a good rating on all their tests except the new small overlap test where it gets a marginal rating. The Forte 5, while different at the rear than the sedan, likely offers similar results. Summing it up for the Kia Forte 5, the question remains, how does it compare to the other cars we talked about? Well, let's start with the price here. At $27,000 and some change, we're in GTI territory, we're in Ford Focus ST territory, as well as pricing for a pretty well-equipped Mazda 3 5-door. These are all great cars, and quite honestly, if I were spending this much money on a 5-door hatch, I'd probably be at one of those other dealerships. Here's why. So we look at the stars here, they really do tell the story. Let's start with the infotainment system that makes me agree to a legal disclaimer every single time I get in the car, and it won't go away. Most other brands, they throw you that screen, but the thing disappears after some point in time on its own when it knows that you've had a chance to see it. No, here Kia wants me to make sure I press that button and absolve them of any legalisms every time I get in the car. It makes me feel like an idiot, like Kia thinks I'm an idiot. If I were spending this kind of money on a car as their customer, I really wouldn't appreciate that. And it really is just something I'd probably almost not buy the car over. The other thing is the steering. It's bizarre. In trying to create sort of this German feel, this on-center feel with the electronic steering rack, they've created a steering that's flittery and nervous on the road. In fact, it's so strange, I would almost take it to the dealership if I owned it and say, what's wrong with my car? But I've read plenty of other reports from other media outlets talking about the same thing. So I tend not to think it's an issue with our tester here. So that said, the car gets 3 out of 5 stars for the week. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride.